Con Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
Getting off the plateau is a really important conversation, and you've got to start to understand about why plateaus actually happen. And there was a paragraph in a book, I've been reading heaps, but there's a paragraph the other day that really set it for me. You must remember the plateaus are the peaks that you were once striving for.
100. Oh my gosh! Wow, have you got a camera or something?
I do.
You know what's so funny? Because we use your Everest.
Yes.
We use the Everest model, right? In terms of camp A, B, C, in terms of where we want to go.
Yeah, 5 years out.
Yeah, that's right. And I was reviewing. Yeah. Literally yesterday, I was reviewing what we said we wanted to do 3 years ago, which is exactly what we did.
Yes.
And then that plateau, that's exactly what I was thinking. That plateau is just that stage that you've got to. It's that level, which then enables the next one, right?
And so the interesting part about it is, though, is that plateaus are awesome unless you're there not by choice.
Yeah.
And then you don't know how to get off it.
Yeah, okay.
And what I'm thinking a lot of that has to do with the framing of how you're thinking about it. So if you're in a position that you're like, I'm really, I've tried my hardest, Con, I can only ever do 20 deals a year and I just can't seem to do any better than that. And that's it. Either you've got to change your thinking about lead generation or days on market or how you win your listings or that, or you go to John McGrath's conversation of, okay, great, well now can you do 20 deals a year but on a day less a week? Yeah, and so you look at productivity improvement, and so you're looking for efficiency gains or new peaks that are different, and it's not just the amount of income, it's often the quality of life. And I know this sounds funny, but there will be a point in your life where you would rather an extra day off than you would an extra 1,000.
Correct.
And so that's about that whole idea about doing that. But when you think about contextually the conversation around why is climbing to a peak so exhilarating? When you finally you make a decision and you lock in. And I find a lot of people have this failure, but that when I give you a plethora of choice, you don't know what you want. But when I make you choose between two things, you're like, I'll take that. Yeah. So as an example, when we go to advanced goal setting with people, we go, okay, cool. Let's think about Morpheus from The Matrix. And he says, blue pill, red pill. And you then have to make a choice. Which one do I want? And so I'm like, okay, Con, do you want to stay living in the same house you're living in for the rest of your life? Yes, no. You go, no, okay, great. Do you want a house without stairs later on? Yes. Okay, great. Do you want a position that you like to some water views? Yes. Okay, great. Would you like to have some investment properties? Yeah, that'd be great. And so all of a sudden, if I start to ask you a series of questions, then all of a sudden that would then change. And, that's a great idea for a book. The questions you should ask yourself at every decade of life.
Oh, that's a great one.
We should write that. So from that point of view, if you then start thinking about that, why is climbing towards a peak such an exhilarating experience?
Oh, I think... from personal experience, I mean, when we started our business in Parramatta, the peak was just to survive.
Yeah.
So simply, it was like, can we break even or make a small profit?
Yeah.
And we had a vision, not a business plan at that point. We had a vision about what we wanted that to look like. And I think the exhilarating part is the journey. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, will sometimes get to that peak or the plateau, which is the next stage of growth in this instance, right? And then forget about why they were doing it. Mm-hmm. So the journey is just as important as the actual achievement. Mm-hmm. But when you get there, you go, you know what? I did something that I didn't think I could do. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I could turn around a business and make it profitable and, go from 4 agents to 22 agents in 12 months and make it the number one office in McGrath's network in year one. Mm-hmm. And then for us, that gave us the confidence and the motivation to basically say, we're on the right track. What we're doing is working in our community. It's working with our team. We can keep going, if that makes sense. So I think what's exhilarating about hitting that peak is that you set yourself a goal that probably looked unachievable, but you did it. Mm-hmm. And that's the fun part, is that you get to continue doing that if you want to continue growing.
Con, the importance of mentors and great people around you is phenomenal in this phase. And
absolutely,
one of the greats is Alexander Phillips' dad, Ron Phillips. And the Ron Phillips story is absolutely exceptional. But I remember I was down here, I was having a coffee with Alex and Ron, and this was 15 years ago. And I think at the time Alex was writing $2 million in fees, which was unheard of. It was phenomenal that he was doing it at that point. And Ron looked at me over the coffee and just sort of said, what do you reckon Alex could ride? And I just made it up. I was like, if he really gave it a go, probably 3.5. And Ron looked back at Alex dead in the eyes and said, time to get hungry again.
Yeah, wow.
And I was just like, what a dad. Because, constantly wanting to seek his dad's approval, constantly wanting that validation.
Yes.
Constantly accepting that what his dad said was good for him.
Yeah.
Allowed him to just develop almost what I would see as an eternal hunger.
But sometimes, Josh, you need someone to believe in you. I mean, you need someone that can push you into a place where you never thought you could go. I remember, sitting down with John. This is literally May the 26th, 2020 is when my first day at McGrath Parramatta, and on Wednesday, John said, okay, you've been here now for 24 hours. What's the plan? And I told him the plan. And I remember him taking his glasses off, right? And he wiping them on his T-shirt. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, you could do that. He goes, but I've got just 2 questions for you. What would it take for you to be able to do your 5-year plan in 6 months? And who would you need to become? And that was like a lightning bolt to my brain because I'd never thought about a concept like that. So the importance of a mentor or a coach or a third party that's going to sit there and, kind of challenge you and push you in terms of your thinking, your ability, it's incredible what that will do for you.
Sometimes, and my dad would refer to it, what's that, that person over there? Yeah, what's the size of their motor?
Yeah, their engine, yeah.
Yeah, and it's okay, great. So how do you develop eternal hunger?
That's another deep question. I think your life experiences, everything, I kind of look at it like a theatre show. You've got chapter 1 and chapter 2. I think your life experiences lead you to where you are right now. And the way that you've grown up, the way that your parents worked and what you've learned in terms of lessons and your core values and who you are at a human level, all these things kind of add up to this thing we call hunger. But the reality is that my engine might be different to yours, and it is. And my hunger might be coming from a scarcity mentality, or it might come from an ego, or whatever it might be. I think the reality is around hunger is, are you happy with where you're at in life today? And if the answer is yes, continue down that path. Like Choose Your Own Adventure, those books. If the answer is no, make the changes. What are the changes that need to be made, right? It's so simple, sometimes it's scary. A lot of people go to me, hey, what do you reckon was the one thing that changed in that 12 months at Parramatta in year 1? And it's not assembling the best team of real estate agents and, going out and coming up with Super Saturday and all that sort of stuff. You know what it was? It was 1 year of blinkered focus, and the only thing that mattered was being able to grow this thing. So our hunger can develop and it can change from, either from a focus point to a goal to just, turning up every single day. And sometimes it's, that's a win. So I read a book, which is pretty full on, about the second half of life. Yeah, right.
And I was getting prepared for you. No, but the basic idea is that they say that the greatest fear that you have as you get older is becoming irrelevant. So you think about your level of relevance, at right now to your kids, and respectfully in 5 or so years' time, when and if they move out and when they go and get partners and they do all of those things, like your relevance in terms of daily having to provide breakfast, lunch, dinner and do all of those things is probably gone, and you might be relieved of that.
I probably will be.
But given how well you cook, but the basic idea is that when you then start to think about that, how important is it for as a part of eternal hunger to make sure that you have relevance, to make sure that you have connection, to make sure that you have relationships that are encouraging you and driving you and pulling you towards a better outcome than where you're at today?
Critically important. I think the connection for me is probably the most important one, along with relationships. Relevance, I think you can always remain relevant if I'm putting my business hat on. But
geez, you've got to be ahead of the technology and conditions and markets and what's going on.
Mate, you're one of those people that I look up to where I go, you showed me something before earlier, but before we started the podcast, I'm like, hey, mental note, you have to be better at this right? So I think the relevance is really up to us. So yes, relationships change, and you're right, when Nikki and Gabe move out and they've got partners and whatnot, our relationship changes, but the connection's still there. So I think for me, it's what's really important. Surround yourself with the stuff that's important, personally and professionally, and then just work on those. Like for me, I've got like half a dozen friends that I must speak to at least once a month, right? And so it's a mental thing that I've got in my brain that I have to connect with them in some way. I've got to see them or to speak to them on the phone, have a quick Zoom, whatever it might be, FaceTime. And that's really important to me to stay relevant in that relationship. So you've got to work on it is what I'm saying.
Has there ever been, are there moments where all of a sudden you just find one thing and then you get out there in hot pursuit of that?
Absolutely, the para. Right, so the opportunity for me wasn't real estate, it wasn't McGrath, it wasn't Parramatta. It was the opportunity because I could see it in front of me. It's like an agent that's got a BDA, a territory, a patch, a farm, whatever. So I look at that and I go, there's 1,500 homes. On my database, I've got 300. The way my brain's wired is I now need to go and acquire those 1,200 relationships by door knocking, letterbox dropping, social, by meeting them at open homes, by being in the community. So I gamify things in my brain and then I just pursue it. So our vision, and I kid you not, Josh, our first vision was the Christmas party. So we had four agents, 2 property managers, 1 administrator. So we had 7 people. So, the day would, go quite quickly after you've said g'day to everyone, had a one-on-one. But we had a vision of what that Christmas party would look like year one.
Yeah.
And that Christmas party was in a park. There was jumping castle, there was, food. And because it was the vision of what I experienced as a child when my parents had their Christmas party. So I just chased that. Could I have this place full of kids and family and friends and entertainment and that hot pursuit of being able to nail that? That's what I chased.
And the interesting thing about it is that if you think about, that's really what the business plan is that, on a business level, is it's about getting clear about, like, this is what we're in hot pursuit of, and these are the techniques or approaches of what we're going to do to get there.
Spot on. That's exactly right.
And if you say to, like, any great agent, it's like, well, what are you going to do this year to shift average sale price, your average fee, and the volume of transactions?
It's pretty simple, right?
And for some people, it'll just be volume.
Yep.
And other people, it'll be tweaking a fee.
Yeah.
And other people, it'll be a bit of a tweak on average sale price.
Correct.
But like learning that literally the way that you play the game versus how I play the game might have some subtle differences because of where our current strengths are.
Yes.
And also too, and I think about this, what are the strengths right now that Con has that he should be leveraging?
Yep.
Relationship, brand, time in market, all of those things. What are some strengths right now that Con would need to develop?
Yep.
And you might go down and say, look, I really need to develop a bit more around X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And so once you've actually got those things there, then you're actually getting really clear about that. And I think that if you use that as a powerful force in business, it'll change a lot of things for you.
Completely agree.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
The graphic designer experience, Con, it was really amazing. We engaged a graphic designer to do some work for us about 8 or 9 years ago, and we said, hey, we need to do this particular thing. And they're like, yeah, okay, great. And they did it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now that you've done it, I need to do something else. And the guy looked at me, what are you talking about? I go, what do you mean? He goes, so normally we just do one-off jobs.
Oh.
And I'm like, no, I want you for life.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a ton of creative projects and different things that we're going to come and send your way. And he's like, oh, well, I've never ever done that before.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yeah, okay, great. And so, a lot of people might not know it, but today you and I are heading into a photo studio.
Yes.
And the photographer that we're doing there said to me recently, he said, Josh, that like this is the 16th time that we've actually done a photo shoot together. And he goes, sometimes I wonder if am I missing creativity? Like, what are we going to go and do next? There's only so many ways you can photograph a guy without hair. And I said to him, yeah, but the interesting conversation is this, like it's subtle improvements every time.
Correct.
And what we're doing is we're building out a repertoire. And I think that whole idea is that if you view a seller as a one-off transaction, or you view a landlord as I'm just going to deal with this issue today, and you don't think to how you can make that a long-term and enduring relationship for life, then you are leaving behind a ton of opportunity, reward, and recognition.
Agreed.
Something that's changing your view.
Comparison is only useful if it inspires. Beware of the highlight reels. And the other day I saw this thing on social where someone set up an account where they're taking down all of the people who are on social, telling everyone how they've made $1 million and how they drive these cars. And then they're actually like hunting in the background to really see what these people's lives are like.
Oh, really?
It's fascinating.
Oh, wow. What is it?
I'll share it with you.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. What about for you? What's changing your view?
One thing that's changing my view at the moment, Josh, is I was watching LeBron James take a free throw shot, right?
Yes.
How many times do you reckon he's practiced that free throw shot in his life?
I'm going to say thousands.
Millions?
Yeah, maybe.
Potentially millions.
Yeah,
Think
sure.
about him from a child, right?
Yeah, it's probably true.
Yeah. So he bounces the ball the exact same way. He flips the ball the exact same way. He then gets the ball in the same position and then he flicks his wrist in the exact same way. Why do we always change everything that we're doing?
Yeah.
Because we need change.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the habit and the routine and the frequency that actually builds all those building blocks for us.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just think that the consistency is the thing that wins.
That's right.